The sky splits open. Thunder shatters the silence. In the distance, footsteps of a god feared even by gods themselves. His name is Thor. But what he brings is not justice, it's a warning. Mortals believe Thor is their shield, but he is actually the sword. Every swing of Mjolnir isn't an act of defense, it's judgment. And it falls not only upon enemies, but upon gods themselves. This isn't the tale of a hero. It's the story of a god whose fury was so immense, even fate couldn't restrain it. Thor wasn't always the Lord of Lightning. Long ago, he was merely a prince whose destiny seemed filled with hope, not destruction. But fate had other plans. It gifted him Thunder's power, a power that came with a cost greater than any god could have imagined. As Thor grew, so too did his rage. Yet his fury was not only weakness, it was his hidden strength, a force that frightened even the gods. Many believe Thor protected mankind, but what if he was actually their greatest threat? What if Thor's strength wasn't salvation, but destruction? The gods saw signs but ignored them. Thor's rage was never random, it was calculated, methodical, a storm quietly gathering on the horizon. Now, it's too late. Thunder echoes one final time, revealing the chilling truth. Thor's wrath was not the end, it was only the beginning. Long before he became the Thingbringer, Thor was just a child born from the union of opposites. Odin, god of war and wisdom, and Yor, the serene goddess of earth. While Odin envisioned a successor to his throne, calm and calculating, grew wild, untamed, his heart pounding with thunder itself. Thor didn't share his father's vision of balance. He sought truth through strength, not to rule, but to protect, to destroy threats at any cost. And thus he grew not as an heir, but as a weapon that even Odin himself could no longer control. Yet within him lived the quiet strength of his mother, Yor, grounding Thor's rage, nurturing a heart that gods failed to see. His brother Loki watched closely, sensing Thor's vulnerability and quietly shaping his destiny from the shadows. Through brutal trials, Odin tried taming his son's fury, yet each battle only strengthened Thor's defiance. Thor openly rejected the throne, choosing the path of a warrior, embracing battlefields rather than courtly halls. On his first true battlefield, Thor discovered his terrifying power, unleashing a storm that shook even Asgard itself. In that moment, Thor's destiny was sealed not as a prince, but as a force of nature. Unstoppable, unpredictable, feared. Thor's hatred of giants was no accident. Since time began, war between gods and Jotuns raged like an eternal flame, but none were as ruthless as Thor. Every battle was victory, every swing of Mjolnir a death sentence. Giants fell at his feet, their bones becoming foundations for his legend. Yet, what if Thetroth was different? What if giants weren't demons but simply different, perhaps even nobler than the gods themselves? Thor's cruelty grew. No longer protector, he became the god's executioner. Was he defending Asgard, or his own uncontrollable wrath? As the war dragged on, Thor became a shadow of his former self. Giants were no longer his greatest threat. His own darkness was. Thor failed to see that his rage didn't defeat giants. It drew him closer to his greatest enemy himself. Far away, in the giants' lands, tears filled the eyes of those who mourned. Not monsters but families devastated by Thor's endless wrath. Even among gods, whispers arose. Was Thor truly their protector, or had his violence become a greater threat than the giants themselves? Even among gods, whispers arose. Was Thor truly their protector, or had his violence become a greater threat than the giants themselves? Alone, Thor fought on, isolated by his rage. Friends turned away, unable to reach the warrior, blinded by vengeance. Facing defeat, the last surviving giant spoke. Your violence will return to you. Thor, your end will not come by our hands, but by yours. Thor heard, but refused to listen. His path was set in blood, his legacy written in the ruins of those he destroyed. As Thor left the battlefield, the skies darkened ominously and noticed signs that the giant's prophecy was already unfolding. Thor's power wasn't truly his own. It was bound within cold steel, and a hammer crafted by dwarves deep beneath the earth. Mjolnir, When the dwarves finished their work, they realized they had created more than a weapon. They had forged an object capable of reshaping the destiny of gods. Mjolnir wasn't merely a lightning-bearing weapon. It was a gateway to Thor's rage, a tool feeding from his strength. And his darkness beneath the glory lay a curse. The hammer granted invincibility, but it demanded a part of the wielder's soul. With each strike, Thor lost himself further. He never understood. Thor believed he controlled Mjolnir, but the hammer controlled him, turning a hero into an unstoppable force of destruction. Mjolnir was a symbol of Thor's might, but it also became the symbol of his downfall. He forged his own destiny, but it was never truly his own. The dwarves had used forbidden magic, embedding runes of ancient darkness. Each rune a whispered secret, each secret a step toward ruin. Mjolnir's power whispered constantly to Thor, tempting him toward greater violence, pushing him past the edge of reason. With each swing, bonds to friends and allies weakened. Thor no longer fought for justice, only for the thrill of battle. Odin realized too late his mistake. His son wasn't wielding a hammer, he was wielding his own undoing. One night, alone by a silent lake, Thor saw his reflection twisted by darkness, his shadow of the god he once intended to become. Despite the warnings, Thor gripped Mjolnir tighter. His path was set. The hammer would lead him to glory and, ultimately, to destruction. Thor never walked alone on his path of glory and destruction. Always beside him stood Loki, god of trickery, ally and rival, friend and foe. Together, they faced countless dangers. Thor's strength combined with Loki's cunning created an unstoppable duo, but every victory cast hidden shadows. Yet Loki saw Thor not as a hero but as a weapon. He manipulated Thor's rage, driving him closer to the edge. And Thor blindly followed. When Thor finally realized the truth, it was too late. Loki didn't seek glory, he desired Thor's downfall. Two gods, once brothers, now opponents, stood face to face. Thor's hammer against Loki's words, confrontation defining the god's destiny. Thor might have won the battle, but Loki won the war. Thor's broken spirit wasn't caused by his hammer but by betrayal from the one he trusted most. Behind Thor's back, Loki wove intricate schemes, setting traps, not only for their enemies, but also for his brother's trusting heart. Whispers began spreading through Asgard, subtle lies planted by Loki, turning gods against Thor, isolating him further. In a quiet moment, Thor glimpsed Loki's true nature, reflection in Loki's eyes betraying a darkness he could no longer ignore. Knowing his brother's weakness, Loki triggered Thor's deepest rage, provoking him into a battle destined to break him completely. Thor confronted Loki in fury, demanding answers. Loki's cruel laughter echoed, revealing years of hidden betrayal and deceit. Thor stood victorious but shattered. Loki vanished, leaving only echoes of betrayal and a brother whose trust was forever lost. Thor knew his path led to only one destination: Ragnarok, the final battle of gods, the day the heavens would shatter and destiny itself crumble. Prophecy foretold Thor's greatest enemy, the world serpent, Jormungandr, whose venom would blacken the skies and end the reign of gods. Yet, despite knowing his fate, Thor marched fearlessly. With every step, lightning tore open the sky, heralding the end. He faced Jormungandr on the battlefield Asgard, against a titan, their clash shaking reality itself to its core. With one devastating strike, Thor defeated the beast, but victory bore a fatal cost. The serpent's venom spread swiftly through his veins. With one devastating strike, Thor defeated the beast, but victory bore a fatal cost. The serpent's venom spread swiftly through his veins. As Thor fell, darkness consumed the skies. His tale ended not in triumph but tragedy. Even gods can't escape fate. Thor dreamed repeatedly of his own death, visions haunting him nightly. Yet each morning, he pushed forward, Defiant, other gods refused to acknowledge Ragnarok, burying themselves in illusions of safety, blind to the signs. Thor sharpened his resolve, preparing alone for a battle he could never win, knowing it would be his last. On the day of Ragnarok, Thor stood valiantly against an impossible enemy. Gods and giants fought their final war around him. Facing inevitable defeat, Thor embraced his destiny, sacrificing everything to save what little he could from ruin. As Thor's final breath faded, he left behind a legacy not of power, but of sacrifice, a lesson gods and mortals alike would never forget. Thor was never the hero legends proclaimed. His story wasn't of glory but a grim prophecy, hidden in myths and shadows. His rage didn't come from strength, it came from fear. Fear of the inevitable doom he foresaw. Every battle fought wasn't victory, it was desperation. Thor struggled endlessly, attempting to delay fate. In death, Thor revealed the painful truth. Gods, like mortals, are bound to fate, powerless to rewrite destiny. Thor's life wasn't a lesson in heroism. It was a reminder that even the strongest carry darkness within. Asgard lay shattered, echoes of Thor's rage and sacrifice forever etched in the ruins, a lasting warning of unchecked power. Mortals whispered tales, not of Thor's heroics, but of warnings against pride, rage, and the illusion of invincibility. Even the surviving gods pondered Thor's fatrializing. His tragedy was their own blindness, ignoring truths until too late. In silent halls of Asgard, Thor's shadow lingered, an everlasting presence, reminding all of a god who fell victim to his own fury. Yet his prophecy remained incomplete, waiting patiently in myths, ready to haunt any who would repeat his mistakes. Thor's story ends not in death, but in warning, a chilling reminder that destiny spares none, not even gods.